was going to say good afternoon. I think it's good evening, councillors. I was going to say, those observing us from near as well as afar, welcome to this meeting. I hope you'll not be disappointed with the standard of debate. Councillors, this evening we are being asked to make a recommendation about the shape of future local government in our county. So let's just take a few moments to reflect on the importance of this issue. Okay, thank you everyone. Please be seated. Right, everybody please note the emergency exits are well marked and no alarms are expected. Should they go off, please proceed in an orderly fashion and assemble in the field opposite the car park. We are as usual live streaming this debate, which may attract a larger than normal audience. It is also BKTM Day, and so please, best behaviour. Although I anticipate some recorded voting, the electronic voting system is active. And just as a reminder, for is on your left, abstain in the middle, and against on the right. And there are no political nuances in their positioning. Speeches, as you know, are limited to 4 minutes, as you're aware. You may only speak once on any item. Consequently, should you wish to propose an amendment, please do so at the start of your speech. Please remember that points of order are for concerns about a law or a rule of debate that has been infringed. There are some exceptional circumstances this evening. As the leader of the council, who has been our representative at all of the multi-leaders meetings, is unable to be present tonight. I therefore intend to use my discretion to allow the leader, Councillor Follows, to speak at the commencement of the item on local government reorganisation, being item 6, before the motion is moved. He will be speaking for no more than 4 minutes and will neither be permitted to speak further in the debate, nor will he be able to vote. For evenness of treatment, I will apply the same discretion to any other members who may be joining us remotely. As this is an extraordinary council meeting, announcements are not a normal part of the business, and I apologise that item 3 has been included in your printed agenda by mistake. That said, you have to put up with me at the start of the meeting. The monitoring officer will need to give us some advice regarding dispensations at the start of item 2 on your agenda, and both the monitoring officer and the chief executive will need to comment to set the scene at the start of item 6, being the main and only item of business. This is the last full council meeting at which I shall be presiding, and so I want to thank all councillors for being so respectful, cooperative and friendly, even when my decisions have not been to their advantage. Being one of the last few mayors of this borough has been a rewarding experience, and I shall long remember and treasure. And for those who are still searching Google for the definition of BKTM, it means be kind to mayors, which I hope you'll do for the next 2 hours. Right, on to the serious parts of business. Item 1, apologies for absence. Katie.
We have apologies from Councillors Davidson, Deuce, Councillor Ruth Reid, Councillor Ken Reid, Councillor Follows, Councillor Lawton, Councillor Sullivan, Councillor Goodridge, Councillor Austin, Councillor Atkins, Councillor Merriweather, Councillor White and Councillor Wicks.
Thank you very much. Any declarations of interest in advance? No. The monitor officer would now like to speak to you before anyone else wishes to make any declarations.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It was just to remind all councillors that a dispensation was granted at the 18th of March meeting in respect of local government reorganisation debates, and that dispensation continues till this evening's meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I assume no others? Right, thank you, councillors. We move to question 4, questions from members of the public. We have received one question from Mr. Tony Roth. A copy of the question and its response is detailed in the 4th supplementary pack published in your agendas. So, Mr. Roth, you have the ability to ask a supplementary question if you so wish. Would you like to take a microphone?
Is this one? Good. I'm on. I'm Tony Ruth. I'm the former leader of Guildford Borough Council, who now lives in Farnham. I thank the leader for his response to my previous questions about reorganisation of local government. And I would like to take forward the issue of empowerment and involvement of local communities and people in the future of local government. I'm particularly interested in infrastructure and planning. And I would be interested if the council would take forward further questions to government and indeed the prospective unitary authorities relating to planning in particular. At present, Waverley has its own local plan. Many towns and villages and communities have their neighbourhood plans. What is going to happen to local plans and neighbourhood plans under unitary authorities? Are there going to be separate borough-wide local plans, whether you have 2 or 3 unitary councils? Because if you have 3, decisions perhaps in Waverley will effectively be made under the weight of Spelthorne, not only the weight of councillors, but the weight of debt. So that's my question, is in a sense, where does planning, local plans and neighbourhood plans figure under unitary councils, and representations be made, I request, to government and to the prospective unitaries to ensure that local plans and neighbourhood plans, the empowerment of local councils, town and parish and residents, be preserved and, if possible, enhanced. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ruth. I'm sure there's going to be a little bit of crystal ball gazing in that, but the Deputy Leader will do his best to answer your question.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for your question, Mr. Ruth. I think it's fair to say that without giving away too much or without predicting too much about what is going to happen tonight, I'm very sure that your questions, if not being answered, will certainly be re-raised by members within this chamber. And I think it's fair to say that whatever happens, your questions are extraordinarily valid. But right now, I don't believe that any of us have the answers. I don't believe that the answers are contained within either the Surrey proposals or the D's and B's proposals. But they do need to be addressed. And I suppose the best answer to your question is, please enjoy the debate here tonight. And if you feel that further information is required, then we will provide you with a written answer.
Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Leader. Item 5 is the next one, which is questions from councillors, and I believe there are none. So we will move to the substantive item, being local government reorganisation. And before we get into the nitty-gritty of the debate, I think the monitoring officer would like a few words.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It was just really to clarify with members that they are clear about the report and the appendices and which appendix is which, because I'm conscious that they were published on different dates. So you should have the report before you. Appendix 1 is the proposal for 3 unitary councils in Surrey, which was published following the report, and Appendix 2, the proposal for 2 unitary councils in Surrey. So Appendix 1 is the one supported by the district and boroughs, and Appendix 2, the one supported by Surrey County Council. Appendix 3 is the original letter of invitation, of the 5th of February 2025 to submit proposals, and Appendix 4 is the summary of the feedback provided by MHCLG in March 25, and then Appendix 5 is an exempt appendix that members have had access to. And I also just wanted to point out that because we're in an unusual situation this evening where the council is considering the matter first and then making a recommendation to the executive, that means that there is no motion moved as yet, because the report before you is an officer report from the chief executive, and whilst it has recommendations within it, we are dependent on a councillor moving a motion to be debated this evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So before we move into the debate, could I ask the leader, Councillor Follows, who I hope is with us remotely, to... Sorry? You want to speak before that? Okay, the Chief Executive would like to speak before that.
I apologise to Councillor Follows for taking up some of his time. Look, just a few things. First of all, thank you, Mr. Mayor, for the opportunity. I just wanted to make a couple of points. First, I wanted to thank officers from across Surrey for their work on these proposals. The process was kicked off by the Minister of State on the 5th of February. We are almost 3 months to the day from that kick-off. In that time, we've produced an interim report and the draft final report, which you have before you tonight. I hope you'll agree that both reports, attached as Appendices 1 and 2, reflect considerable work, and that you'll join me in thanking those involved from across the county and district and boroughs. Secondly, I wanted to thank our various stakeholders for their time and engagement, and to thank the 3,000 plus residents who took their time to respond to our survey. I understand that the pace on all of this has been and has felt relentless. I think we've all felt that. But the government has indicated that reorganisation will be moving forward. So this is for us a once in a generation opportunity to influence government's thinking and government's decision making on this important issue. So I just wanted to take the opportunity to urge members to come together to recognise the work that's gone into this and to debate the approach that delivers the best outcomes for all of Surrey, and especially for the residents and businesses of Waverley. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Executive. Now I will ask the leader to speak to us remotely. And for clarity, the Chief Executive has not taken any of his time. He still has his full 4 minutes. Leader, are you available to speak?
I am indeed, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. Okay, good evening, Mr. Mayor, members, officers and members of the public. My thanks to the Mayor for allowing me to speak on this subject tonight. A holiday booked some time ago has clashed with this process, and I'll of course be listening in for the duration afterwards. Before I start on the subject, can I apologise again for not being there this evening? And secondly, just to thank all of the officers that have contributed to the existence of the D&B paper, in particular Luke Harvey, Perry Ashton and our Chief Executive, and officers from many other districts and boroughs across the county. And I would also like to thank my fellow council leaders across Surrey for all of their work and for enduring all of the very long and complicated meetings that we all had to be part of. Now, please keep in mind, members, that the audience for these documents is in fact the government. And that means that some of the things are not written in the way that you would communicate this to residents, but has been crafted deliberately based on the discussions we have had with the intended audience. And I also want to apologise for the downbeat tone that I'm probably going to be taking after this paragraph, because reform of local government could and should have been an opportunity to do things better and to do things properly. It could have been an opportunity to make local government work for residents, and instead what we have is this. This version of the process, started by the county, compresses what should have been years of planning and discussion into mere months. It strips almost all of the vision from this subject and makes it almost exclusively about money in 2025 and not about the next 50 years. For any version of this process, any map under discussion, I am concerned that debt and other issues elsewhere, wherever you are in Surrey, will mean higher taxes, reduced services, and the final and complete elimination of all discretionary spend anywhere that is helping vulnerable people in places like Waverley. And you will see reference to this in the motion that will be proposed. This fast-track process has also meant that engagement with the public has been lower than any of us would like, and I personally think the subject should have been part of the cancelled county elections. People should have been running for office on this. But the county will be making their own decisions tomorrow on this, a week after their mandate should have ended. Now, we have as D&Bs, over the objection of the county, I might add, tried to engage with residents, and over 3,000 people, as the Chief Executive made clear, responded to the survey, and about 60% of those who responded made it clear that they preferred 3 unitaries over 2. Residents also made it very clear that they wanted decision-making to be as local as possible, something that as Waverley councillors, many of us also town and parish councillors, we understand. The D&B plan, arguing for 3 unitaries, outperforms the 2 unitary model on every criteria set by the government except population, which, as we know from numerous communications with the government, is up for discussion, and with likely growth in housing numbers would be a moot point in a little over a decade anyway. 2 unitaries, however you cut it, from Staines to Hazelmere or Oxted to Farnham, is simply too big. And yes, 3 unitaries are still large, but they at least try to recognise economic zones, housing areas, work travel routes, and other basic affinities. And so, for example, it's likely someone in Waverley has a level of familiarity with Guildford, Woking, Camberley, or Staines for various reasons as outlined above, but far less likely to have anything with Oxted, Sunbury, Staines, Epsom, or parts of Tandridge. I also strongly believe that it's only through having 3 councillors per division, as per the D&P plan, that elected councillors will have any hope whatsoever in dealing with the caseloads across such a vast area for each division and a vast breadth of services that are covered by a unitary. The county proposals continue to argue for just 2 per division. I will also conclude by making it clear that the D&B proposal sees towns and parishes as being the best placed, most direct tier of government to represent and respond to local needs. The SCC proposal sees the creation of unelected, unrepresented community boards. I have no idea how they will raise money to do anything or what legal basis they intend to do so. But clearly, as evidenced by Surrey wanting to demo this in Farnham, this has the potential to directly conflict with our elected towns and parishes. This is actually a matter for the new unitary to debate, not Surrey, and as such, the legal primacy should remain with our town and parish councils. Areas without one, of course, can choose democratically to create one via a community governance review. Now, I'm sure many of you will have questions about debt and finances, and there are officers and members present who can assist with that. But this also needs to be about more than the money. It needs to be about the next 50 years and what residents need. Councillor Townsend will, I'm sure, be covering this in more depth, and I'm grateful to her and Councillor Fairclough for introducing this item in my absence today. And I urge you to support the motion for 3 unitaries, that's Appendix 1, that they will put to you in a few moments, as it will represent the most local council that is possible for us to have.
Leader.
I'm just finishing, and will be, I think, the best in the best interests of the residents of Waverley. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, members.
Is there anyone else watching remotely who may wish to address the council? Thank you very much. Okay, before the motion is formally moved, we have the ability for councillors to ask questions of clarity on the motion, which, since it is different from the one in your agenda, could we have it on the screen, please? Could we do something about the lights here to dim them down?
Mr. Mayor, would you mind reading through it? Because from the back here, it's getting better. Yeah.
I'll read it. How's that? Can you turn it around so I can see it? 2.1 notes. Significant concerns about the pace of local government reorganisation in Surrey, as well as the potential for discretionary spending cuts. Hold it still, please. The exposure of Waverley Borough Council assets Is it going to stop moving now? Okay. The exposure of Waverley Borough Council assets as a means to repay the debts of other local councils and the likelihood of substantial council tax increases for Waverley residents due to these debts and other associated costs of reorganisation. Supports the proposal to establish 3 unitary councils in Surrey as set out in Appendix 1, conditional upon 3 key factors: the resolution of the significant unsupported debt across the county, addressing discretionary spending concerns, and respecting the established autonomy of Waverley's existing town and parish councils. Could you now send it up a bit?
don't need the rest.
Okay, so that is the motion that will be proposed. Does anyone have any queries before it is proposed? And I have you, councillor. And I hasten to add, it is queries about what is on the screen, not the two appendices which probably broke your post boxes earlier in the week. Can I take it then that whether you agree, disagree, like or dislike, it is at least clear what is on the board? Is that agreed, councillors?
Sorry, Mr Mayor. Could you,
There is a bit missing.
there's some more below that we need to see. So the preferred option is it's not saying what it is, and we've got to add to it ourselves unless it says more that we know about. So can you scroll a bit further and see?
Could we
what it
scroll it up for them to see, please?
says? Down, preferably.
Yes.
So through you, Mr Mayor, the part that you can't see is the recommendation to the executive meeting to be held later this evening. The recommendations or the motion that's about to be moved for council this evening is just 2.1 and 2.2.
Does 2.2 not continue because it says that council and then recommends to the executive, and we want to know what we're recommending to the executive or whether there's something else. So, but it doesn't state the preferred option. Oh,
I think what they are trying to say, councillor,
Okay,
is that
I'm
we
with you.
select a preferred option and recommend it to the executive.
Well, no, actually, it is in the first line of the paragraph previously, isn't it? That, which says the three unitaries. It does say 3 unitaries. Yeah. Okay. Yes. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Mr
Let me
Mayor.
put that on record. Councillor Townsend, would you like to move the motion?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to move the motion and I believe I have a seconder.
Happy to second, Mr Mayor.
Do you wish to reserve your right to speak later, seconder?
I'll reserve my right. Thank you.
Floor is yours, Councillor Townsend.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The future of local government in Surrey is at a crossroads. This is a once-in-a-generation decision, one that will shape how our communities are governed, how our services are delivered, and how the voices of our residents are heard for decades to come. The impacts are so fundamental that I know I'm not alone in believing this should have gone to the ballot box on the 1st of May. Right now, it's hard to point to any immediate benefit for Waverley's residents. They face escalating council tax bills and the potential use of the borough's assets to cover for others' profligacy. But here's the truth. We can't stop reorganisation. We can't delay it. And it is happening. And we have a responsibility to those who we represent to do the best we can on their behalf. We're working to a brutal timeline. Proposals that should take 12 to 24 months to develop are being rushed through in just 3. And we know why. The driver here is the eye-watering debt, including Surrey County Council's own debt burden of around 1.9 billion. This is the urgency, and any delay will have a real impact on services that our residents depend on, like adult social care and children and young people with special educational needs. Both current proposals use near identical language to admit that there has been insufficient time for proper financial analysis of the current and future debt picture. Yes, government has given some assurances. It recognises Woking's exceptional situation and has promised an initial tranche of support. But we don't yet know what form that support will take, how the wider county's debt will be managed, or what the fair funding review will mean for us. In the absence of that information, it is only right that we insist that these matters are resolved as a condition of any proposal moving forward. Now, while there may be a long-term savings and efficiencies, we must be honest about the risk. The biggest, that local voices will be drowned out and crucial local discretionary spending lost within larger unitaries, with power centralised in fewer hands led by national politics rather than local service delivery. And what about our towns and parishes? Will they be absorbed into politically led community boards with the chair and agenda set by the unitary? We've already seen what happens in Wiltshire. Their community boards have struggled, no real powers, struggling to recruit volunteers, and they are costly and difficult to run. In areas like Waverley, where we already have effective town and parish councils, this could lead to duplication, confusion, and councils being sidelined on issues that have always been within their remit. That's why this motion calls for the established autonomy of Waverley's town and parish councils to be respected, and we will continue to call for greater consultation with them in future. Yes, this is a momentous decision, but we cannot hide from it, and we cannot put it off. Within the limited powers that we have, it is our duty to choose. Let's look at the proposals. The Surrey Conservative proposal, which Surrey councillors have not voted on, splits the county into two unitaries, east and west, with a reduction in local representation from 534 councillors to 162, with an arbitrary boundary that concentrates debt in the west, cuts across well-established functional economic areas, a primary driver for growth, and disaggregates key services. It reflects a bigger is better ideology, one that's been repeatedly disproven. More than 300 academic studies over 50 years say the same thing. The larger the council, the weaker the democracy. Less voter turnout, less public engagement, more public distrust. Now contrast that with the proposal for 3 unitaries developed by the district and boroughs. This is the product of genuine collaboration across political divides. And I want to take a moment to thank all of the officers and the councillors for their extraordinary commitment, hard work, under really intense pressure. In a very limited window, this process still managed to include residents' voices, with over 3,300 Surrey residents responding to the survey. Their message was clear: 63% support 3 unitaries, only 17% support 2. Why? Because people know that 3 unitaries mean better representation, stronger community identity, and decisions made closer to home. These 3 areas weren't drawn from thin air. They build on established functional economic areas, are underpinned by real lives, commuting patterns, infrastructure links, strategic housing market assessments, and established business ecosystems, all key drivers for thriving communities. They establish greater representation with 3 councillors across each division, resulting in 243 councillors. They make sense economically, socially, and strategically, and increase local representation. You can tell when reading the 3 unitary proposal that it was built with real understanding of each area. There is an energy that leaps from the pages. It rejects the one-size-fits-all approach, and it highlights the non-financial benefits of smaller, more responsive, more agile councils, particularly when it comes to delivering key services. For all these reasons and many more, I will be supporting 3 unitary model with the conditions as stated within the recommendations. And I would urge you to let's keep the local in local government. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Well timed. Right. Speakers. Councillor Hyman, followed by Councillor Clark, followed by Councillor Nicholson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I am concerned, actually, having thought it through, that we should clarify slightly, add a few words to the recommendation, because we've got notes and supports, but the actual recommendation to the executive does not state which is the preferred option. And I think we should make it clear that as we've got 2 options, Surrey's preferred option and our preferred option, or Waverley officers' preferred option, we should make it absolutely clear in the recommendation, just by adding a few words that effectively say the Waverley officers' preferred option of 3 unitary councils. If we add that into that one-line recommendation we've got, I would be very satisfied that it's clear what the preferred option is that we support and are recommending to the executive. Apart from that, I support precisely what has been accurately summarised by others and by the leader and by the portfolio holder for planning this evening. That there hasn't been any engagements. The I look at this and I see the end of local democracy in our area. It's very sad. It's not beyond rescue as far as I'm concerned. I don't think it's ever too late until the elections are sorted in a year or maybe even 2 or 3 years' time. But in the meantime, horrible things could happen and we should avoid it. Some excellent work on this has been done by Catherine Powell, the Farnham residents leader and the leader of the independence group at Surrey County Council. She's pointed out, you see, that what we're really doing here is we're fighting Surrey's option as well as whatever the government might want to come up with themselves. So it's not just about selling our own option of 3, the preferred option, which is far best for democracy. It's also about being able to point out that the Surrey's option is completely inconsistent. Their preferred option recommends their 2.1, but the analysis shows that 2.2 is a lot more balanced. We ought to be pointing out all the flaws with the Surrey option. The Surrey option is incomplete. It reviews where council tax is currently raised and spent and recognises there will be an increase, but it doesn't include any data on the council tax base. Why? Because it's extremely unbalanced, what they're putting forward. It's flawed because it places all high debts and low council tax base and high social need in one of the 2 proposed unitary authorities, the West. It doesn't explain to residents the implication of that and how it's going to be paid. And we do know, looking at it, that actually it's not financially viable. What is being proposed, the alternative, is not financially viable, and we have got to sort that out before we go forward. And we're being told we haven't got time to do it before we go forward. We've got to go into elections. People have got to stand for this council. In a position where it's a no-go. It's not going to work, and we'll be in immediate problems. What's the government doing? Compounding the problem by not making Woking pay the interest on their debt. They are compounding the problem by just adding on the interest at the moment for future years for us to help pay. And none of this is right. But I would propose, please, that we add in, that I support what's being put forward, that we add a few words in. If someone else, Peter Clark is following me, so if he would like to recommend it, I will certainly support. Just adding in clarification for which option we are going to support. So I'll move it now. I've got 14 seconds. I move that we add words clarifying which option it is we're recommending, Mr. Mayor. If you want the words, happy to do it, but you'll need to put the thing up on the screen so I can see what it is, so I know exactly where to put them in.
I think as a proposer of a motion, you need to supply the exact wording.
Yeah, but I haven't got the other motion. So at the bottom where it says 2.2 recommends, and it should say recommends to the executive, to this evening's executive meeting, the preferred option, or the officer's preferred option of 3.
I don't think we can say the officer's preferred option. I think we can say council's preferred option.
Sorry, I thought it was introduced earlier as being the officer's option, and that's why we were having to make up our own thing. But I'm not worried if you're saying that's not what was said. Okay, the preferred option of 3 unitary authorities that's it. Simply it recommends the preferred option of 3 unitary authorities, so that it's clear that we're not recommending Surrey's.
Thank you, Councillor. Do you have a seconder?
Happy to second that.
Thank you, Councillor. Council, we now, one moment. We now normally would go into debate on the amendment before we go back to the substantive motion. I sense that may be an acceptable addition of words. I will ask the proposer of the original motion if she is content with it, in which case I will ask you to approve it by acclamation so that we don't spend ages talking about 3 words. Liz Townsend, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I mean, I think it's helpful for Councillor Hyman to have put forward, but the motion itself is not just about the three options. It recommends the preferred option, as you can see, as identified in 2.1, which includes as well about the conditions that we're placing on it. So if you do scroll down, you'll see it does actually say 2.1. I'm happy for noting the concerns expressed in 2.1 and determine, perhaps consider it in the 2.3 comment. So consider the recommendation of, but I don't think you can just recommend 3, because then that negates perhaps the bottom bit, which includes more information. But I do agree that it's helpful, Jerry. So perhaps may I suggest that consider the comments of the council, including the proposal to establish 3 unitary authorities, or including the recommendation for 3 unitary authorities, and then going on to note the concerns. Perhaps the monitoring officer might be able to provide better wording. I'm just very conscious that we don't want to miss out the other bits. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, 2.3 on your screen is for the executive meeting later on. So it's not something for this meeting to consider at all. It's just 2.1 and 2.2. So perhaps the suggestion is that 2.2 recommends the preferred option of 3 unitaries to the executive might be what's looked for.
As long as that includes the conditions as well, that we're putting that forward on, which are above.
It's just amending that one, isn't it?
Okay,
Yes.
subject to the conditions above.
As per paragraph 2.1 above.
Definitely would agree with that. Thank you, Susan.
Are we content with that?
I'm very
Council,
content.
are
Thank
we
you.
agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you very much indeed. Councillor Clark, I had you down to speak next. Have you exhausted yourself, or do you have more to say?
Well, I was hoping that the monitoring officer might pass my expenses for paracetamol, because I've been gobbling it and reading these excellent reports, I must say, and I'd like to congratulate the Chief Executive and everybody else involved. A marathon in a sprint. Mr. Mayor, some members I've heard wish to politicise the ongoing debate on the Surrey's LGR, somehow thinking it's a battle between Conservatives and Liberal Democrats. Nothing could be further.
Before you go too deep in that, could I ask you to try and veer off the political stuff? Because so far the Conservatives have been remarkably quiet this evening.
Well, I was going to compliment them. Nothing could be further from the truth. The 2 unitary council proposal is from a Conservative county council, but has the support of 2 Liberal Democrat-run district councils, whereas the 3 unitary council proposal has been produced by an alliance of district and borough councils led by an assortment of independent, Conservative, Lib Dem and residents-run administrations. Here endeth the political part. It is unfortunate that the debt issue has overshadowed the whole local government reorganisation process. However, when you read the letters from Jim McMahon, the Minister of State, the government seems to recognise that Woking's debt cannot be managed in its entirety through the LGR process. However, the government so far is not showing its hand, and I believe they're waiting to see to what extent, if any, the various proposals are able to absorb some of this debt. But you can see from the statements from the final proposals, both the county and the D&Bs are pushing back. The County Council final proposal states, and I quote, "Writing off stranded debt of Woking Borough Council is the only viable option to ensure the financial sustainability of new unitary councils." The D&B final proposal states, "We would welcome further discussions with government for dealing with the currently high levels of local authority debt in Surrey." And then goes on to say on page 103, Surrey leaders continue their position as outlined in the correspondence with the Minister, with a requirement for writing off the stranded debt in relation to Woking Borough Council. So for now, it seems that we have reached a stalemate. But nevertheless, this evening's council gives us all the opportunity to underline the importance of taking a strong position on the debt. And importantly, this position should be not just to government, but to our residents who should not be asked to shoulder the debt burden from other councils. However difficult as it may be, we should not be completely blinkered by the debt issues and instead support what we think is the best LGR proposal for Waverley, remembering that unitarisation is a stepping stone to strategic authorities and mayors and maybe with us for the next 50 years. So members, if you believe that a sense of place and local community with stronger local democracy and representation should come to the fore. Yes, the County Council's 2 unitary proposal is built on the scale required to show larger savings. And I'm going to wrap up now. Any local authority structure should provide strong democratic accountability, representation and community empowerment.
Could you wrap up a little faster?
We will all be held accountable in the May elections next year. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I have Councillor Nicholson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, my support will be for a unitary 3 members and autonomous local councils. First of all, the proposed councils are a bit below the required 500,000 residents, but they're still sizable, and no exact 500,000 is possible. They also have good inter-transport and economic links, and in particular they have a common geography, i.e. North Surrey being the emergent Thames Valley area, East Surrey and North Downs Spine, and the west is a Western Surrey Heath combined with the Surrey Hills. But the key factor is a sense of place, where residents are content to belong, and this setup achieves just that, while a larger council would not. But one of the major points we've discussed is the debt, the working debt. And I don't really understand why the debt could not be contained in a separate account, something like the HRA account type of behaviour. And it would be paid off over very many years because that is the practical solution to the problem. And should not be, we shouldn't have an immediate burden of the debt. So the government could say, well, this debt is not being written off, but effectively it is a form of writing off because the payment would be over many years. So everyone then has a sort of happy situation. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I have an alliteration of councillors Martin, Murray and MacLeod, followed by Councillor Coburn. So, Councillor Martin.
Thank you for being an alliteration. Mr. Mayor, to 3 or not to 3, that is the question. The administration has always said that its recommendation is evidence-based. We, of course, know that to be something of a skewed statement. The leader and page 5 of the unitary document proclaims that Surrey's residents overwhelmingly support the creation of 3 unitary authorities. In the detail on page 29, we find that the overwhelming support is based on a survey of just 3,300 residents conducted not by Ipsos Mori or YouGov, but on the Commonplace Engagement platform. And apparently they found 2,000 people saying yes to their favourite solution. Overwhelming support? Well, from 2,000 people, which is less than 1/5 of 1% of the population of Surrey? I don't think so. I think you're kidding me. Then the 3 unitary model delves into localism based on natural geographic areas and ensuring that local government stays close to the people with no loss of local expertise and knowledge. Somehow, Waverley, Guildford, Woking and Surrey Heath, with a population of 478,000 people, achieves this. But if you add Runnymede and Spelthorne, localism is suddenly not achieved and everything goes wrong. Somehow adding Runnymede and Spelthorne's population of 190,000 to bring the West Surrey population to 668,000 causes the whole case to fall apart and for disaster to ensue. Well, I don't buy that thesis. in the same way that I don't buy the natural geographic areas that have been put forward. And I do speak as a person who once wrote a thesis on settlement spheres of influence and geographic areas for my degree in geography. Cost savings. Mr. Mayor, the Secretary of State says that efficiencies should be identified to help improve council's finances and make sure that council taxpayers are getting the best possible value for their money. Now, if you turn to page 121 of the 3 unitary document entitled Summary of Savings, on that page, the first table shows that by 2031-32, the net savings accumulated after 5 years of actual operation for the 5 unitary model is £121 million. But then look at table 2 on the same page and you see that the 2 unitary model approach delivers a net saving of £223 million, not far off double the savings. Waverley's own favoured document itself says that the 2 unitary model delivers far more savings. Waverley's proposition is that we don't accept the better financial offer. This is ridiculous. Where's the value for money for the taxpayer? Disaggregation costs. In the Secretary of State's feedback on the 4th of April, concern was expressed at the greater risks of disaggregation in the 3 unitary model. The districts and boroughs have no experience of running adults and children's social care, yet they insist that annual disaggregation costs of splitting those huge departments into 3 will be only 18 million a year. The county says that at best it will cost £43 million a year. A huge difference. Who do you believe? Like the Secretary of State, I'm deeply concerned at the district and borough's optimism. It's a risk too far. So, Mr. Mayor, the answer to my opening question is definitely not to 3. The answer is to 2. Thank you.
Thank you for that beautiful poetry, Councillor Martin. I have Councillor Murray, followed by Councillor MacLeod.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've read the report and both associated submissions carefully over the past few days, and I've also spoken with colleagues. And my overriding feeling is one of dismay. It's clear to me that the Surrey County Council submission has been authored by a single entity, while the Ds and Bs submission reflects the input of 11 authors. The Surrey County Council document outlines a clear vision for a future unitary. They clearly have the plans in place to make it happen. But, as Councillor Hyman states, Councillor Catherine Powell's report clearly shows that it's totally unbalanced between East and West and utterly flawed. But it also misses what I think is a crucial point. It will not be Surrey County Council deciding the outcome. The future will lie with the newly elected shadow authority, and given last week's local election results, its political makeup could be entirely different from what Surrey County Council currently envisions. The Ds and Bs submission is what I think is full of wonderful aspirations and broad visions. It sounds great, and it manages to be inoffensive to most people. But I would like to thank all the officer members who have inputted their ideas to it. But it is built also on the premise that simply being a bit smaller will somehow deliver real localism. I don't believe this holds true for a second. For example, in Farnham, we would go from having 19 councillors to just 9. The council headquarters could be based in Woking or Reigate or somewhere else. This doesn't feel like localism to residents, quite the opposite. But I do understand that the process has been mandated by central government, but it seems we've all just accepted this as a fait accompli, with little real debate about whether this reorganisation is actually a good thing for Waverley and its communities. Our residents have sent a clear and consistent message through every questionnaire that they value and wish to have true localism. Neither proposal delivers anything of the sort. although I note with recommendation now asks to preserve the autonomy of towns and parishes. How that will come about, I don't know. I will await with anticipation of what the delayed government white paper may say on real devolution of powers to town and parish level, on the matters of local planning and many other questions, which I hope will provide the answers that Mr. Ruth and many people like myself are waiting for. So, Mr. Mayor, I will vote in favour of the motion with the conditions, not because I think 3 unitaries will improve the lives of residents of Waverley or that it will give them any true local democracy. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I have Councillor MacLeod, followed by Councillor Coburn.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I fully support the 3 unitary proposal. To me, it was a very good document and very convincing, and I support the comments made by the Chief Executive in congratulating the authors for doing all this hard work in such a short period of time. The difference between this document and the Surrey document is, to me, this document was written by people who really believe in it. It does have a vision. It does focus on localism as opposed to remote councils, the Surrey proposal for much larger remote councils. When it comes to the Surrey Council document, Councillor Hyman was right in highlighting the excellent work that's been done by Councillor Powell, which will be reporting to the Surrey meeting tomorrow, which actually shows not only that the two council vision is a bad one, but they've chosen the wrong version of it, actually. They put forward 2 versions, and they've chosen the most unbalanced version. But I'd like to comment in terms of my comment that it's not a believable document, just by quoting something that Councillor Powell says in her document. Realistically, the Surrey County Council papers are selling one unitary authority for Surrey with a mayoral authority with an unwilling neighbouring partner. You just need to look at the figures in Table 6 on page 49 of their plan, which actually shows that in every way, financially, the one unitary version is by far the best financially, both in terms of implementation and in terms of the benefits over the first 7 years of the thing. So my recommendation to this council is to support the 3 unitary proposal. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. I have Councillor Coburn, followed by Councillor Gale.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I mean, I have never been a supporter of unitaries. I've always been a great supporter of towns and parishes. But this is one of the most important decisions we've had to make. But let's be honest, we're not making it. Doesn't matter what we send in tonight. I must say, I thoroughly enjoyed reading the documents, much to my surprise, over the last few days, and they are interesting. I was amazed, you know, the first council documents in 20 odd years has really gripped me. But the sad fact is they have gripped me and I have enjoyed reading them, but it's not going to make a jot of difference. For what it's worth, I like the Surrey version, but I like 2-3. You know, I like the north-south divide. It's not going to make any difference what I think, what you think, what any of us thinks. It's going to go in and it's going to be a central government decision. What I think we should be looking at is what Councillor Murray's touched upon, Councillor Hyman, many of us outside this council chamber have been working on, and that is the importance of keeping the local voice in whatever we end up with, because we're not going to influence it by what we say. We could stay here tonight till midnight. We could all have our 4 minutes worth. We could all say, oh, I prefer 3, I prefer 2. Have you looked at the table on page 38? It's not going to make a jot of difference. These documents are going to go in to the Secretary of State, and Jim McMahon is going to decide down the line what he thinks is going to deliver what central government wants. And that is savings. I mean, let's be honest about it. They're not doing this for the good of the community, and certainly not for our good. Who's that naughty person? £5 in the Mayor's charity, please. So, you know, I hope we don't go round and round on this. I think most of us have made up our minds. We've had this debate before. We haven't had these detailed papers, but we've had these detailed papers and we've looked at them. And as I say, I think as we have so little influence over what it is, I think all we can do is work with whatever one comes out of the mix. And as I say, the one thing is that towns and parishes must be treasured. They are, as I've said before in this chamber, they are the local source of, they are the experts in their area. Working with Dockenfield on the AOMB extension was a real lesson in how knowledgeable the locals are on their own patch. And so that to me is the vital bit. Which of these goes in? I'm going to vote for the two. I don't think it's going to make that much difference whether it's one, two or three, to be perfectly honest. But I do think that, as I say, we've got to concentrate on our actual residents and what we put in place for them. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I have Councillor Gale, followed by Councillor Denis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I too congratulate the officers for these magnificent documents. Being a parish councillor, I thought I would ask locally what people thought. And I spun round a few Facebook pages and overwhelmingly they all thought option 2.3, the north-south divide in the Surrey's manual, was the one that they all thought we ought to go for. I think there were two reasons. They feel that the north-south gives us more rural neighbours, and they also wanted to steer clear of any debts further north. And that has come up a number of times with everybody. I can tell you that most of my residents who did respond to me were a little upset that they hadn't been asked to put in their two penneth, and things coming out in the social media saying this is your decision that we're putting forward tonight sort of irked them a bit. So I did ask some questions, and apparently we sent out 20,000 emails, and I'm not sure how those email addresses were found or who they were sent to. But I see that there were 3,300 responses to a survey, and I don't think that was just in Waverley. I think that was across the whole of Surrey. So how many people in Waverley actually decided they wanted the split that we're looking at tonight, I really don't know, because I can't see any figures on that. But I just thought I should speak up for the people out in the old parish council areas and let you know that they're not happy. They didn't think they'd been asked, and they would have much rather steered well clear of Woking. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I have Councillor Denis, followed by Councillor Barker-Lomax.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've got 2 pages of notes, but I'm not going to use them, so you'll be delighted. I'll try and keep it just to a few bullet points now, because I think the points have been made. Councillor Clark, thanks for your balanced comments. Both boroughs and county think the debt is unsustainable, and that has always been the case. I think a couple of people have raised the issue about the number of councillors. Actually, that is a decision of the Boundary Commission. So we know how they operate. They come and decide where the areas are going to be. They will be the ones who will make the decision. Not the government, not us, not boroughs. So it's the Boundary Commission. Councillor MacLeod, you mentioned about you believe it was written by people who don't believe in it. I think that's quite disrespectful to the hard-working staff of Surrey County Council, who have, like boroughs, have put a lot of time and effort and their personal commitment in putting up a bid. So I want to thank them because they do care what they put in. It's been mentioned about Councillor Powell's emails and document. I think that will probably be debated tomorrow at county. I am sure there may be a few facts that are corrected or pointed out, and I think as it hasn't been part of the general conversation, I'm sure the details will come out on that. There's lots of things you could say about why 2 is better. I'm sure you are aware, or if you're not, that the police will be going down to 2 divisions to match a 2 unitary. The Health Authority will be doing the same, and other statutory partners. So there are a lot of reasons why it does make absolute sense. And finally, talking about the towns and parishes, absolutely agree with what Councillor Coburn says. They are a treasure. But I have seen absolutely nothing in the Surrey bid that doesn't say they fully support them and expect them to play their fullest role in the future. So I think we just got to be careful. We don't paint that the towns and parishes are suddenly going to be disbanded or absorbed. Absolutely not. My personal view is I think they've got a greater role to play. I'll keep it at that because I know you like brevity.
Brevity is my twin brother. I just never met him yet. Councillor Barker-Lomax, followed by Councillor Keele.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you to Waverley's officers for your work in producing this proposal. Thank you to Councillor Townsend for acknowledging the need to address Woking's debt as a prerequisite to the formation of 2 or 3 unitaries. In the current debate over local government reorganisation, we've heard many words about cohesion and identity, but we cannot ignore the numbers. Waverley's proposal to create 3 unitary authorities rather than 2 is estimated to cost our taxpayers an additional £249 million, according to Surrey County Council's forecast. However eloquently we frame the discussion, the fact remains we are asking residents to shoulder up to £250 million more taxes by proposing 3 unitary councils rather than 2. I will therefore vote against this proposal.
Thank you. I have Councillor Keele, followed by Councillor Williams, and then blessings from above. I have no more hands. Blessings have just descended.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In this once-in-a-generation opportunity to reshape local government in Surrey, we, of course, need to get this right. I believe the most representative option for our residents, which is on the table, is the 3 unitary option. I think it does matter what we say here this evening. Our residents will not thank us for requesting a system that makes it harder for them to get the support and advocacy that they need, that creates local councillors who are dealing with more residents and more complex issues that come with merging 2 tiers of government. Issues like adult social care, children's services, SEN. This can only water down the role that councillors will be able to play. The boroughs that border London are materially different to the boroughs towards the south of Surrey. Not only would our representation be diluted, but we would have precious resources and money drawn far away from residents in our area to meet the needs in the north of the county, impacting service delivery here. Regardless of the number of respondents, I think it should be applauded that many of the district and boroughs have in this short time frame come together, organised, promoted and analysed a public consultation on this matter. And I note that I did not see any reference to public engagement in the SCC proposals. I'm also very concerned, as we all are, about the level of unsupported debt that exists within our county. Some of the most significant local government debts in the country are here. According to its commissioners on the 6th of March, even if Woking sold every asset it owned, it would still own £1.5 billion. And as we know, this is not the only debt issue in Surrey. Other boroughs and the county council have substantial levels of debt. Where the burden of this falls is a worry for many, and for those who are struggling with the cost of living, additional payments to cover other councils' debts does not seem fair. I would just like to end by thanking everybody who supported on these proposals from all the councils across Surrey, the districts, boroughs and the county. As our Joint Chief Executive noted, this pace has been considerable and all of our officers have worked extremely hard. Thank you all.
Thank you, Councillor. I have Councillor Williams, followed by Councillor Long.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The wagon is rolling, and Councillor Coburn may be right in that we may not have that much influence. But if we value the local voice, we need to state a clear preference this evening, and it needs to be based on which of the options retain most the principle of localism, which is something that I hold to very dearly. Now, Councillor Martin may be a geographer by training, but the case he puts hinges on finances rather than demographics. We know that creating one unitary authority has always been Surrey County Council's ideal model, i.e. Surrey County Council, hoovering up the districts and boroughs and creating one big and very unwieldy local authority. This would, in theory, be more financially viable than 2 or 3 unitaries. The 2 authority proposal, which is allegedly Surrey's current preference, is not much better and gives a mere nod to local accountability. But we know that the West and East unitaries in the Surrey proposal are hugely unwieldy, and the idea in the West of a single unitary stretching from the London fringe around Heathrow, Ashford, Staines to the rural communities around Hazelmere and Chiddingfold, or the rural communities around Frensham and Tilford, is an utter nonsense in terms of any concept that we might have of localism and local government. Now, we might prefer a 4 authority model. We might prefer that Surrey County Council had not rushed headlong into LGR. We might like to be making decisions about the disposal of debt this evening, or local government finance, or even reforming our outdated voting system for local government. But basically, in this debate, we do not have the luxury of an open agenda. We have a binary choice this evening, and in simple terms, I would suggest that there is a stronger rationale for 3 rather than 2 unitaries in terms of striking that balance that we need to hold dear to in the remodelling of local authorities along the unitary proposal, that balance between economic efficiency and local accountability. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. I have Councillor Long, and at the moment, no more names, but that is not an invitation to try and keep us here till midnight.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. For me, the most compelling piece of information in the reports that we've been presented with is the output of the resident engagement survey. We frequently discuss in this chamber that, in spite of our political differences, each of us stood for election with the objective of representing our residents and their community and of advocating for them. In the survey, we asked our residents what they wanted, and they told us. I was really delighted that as many as 3,000 residents chose to complete the survey. That shows a level of engagement with LGR that I just didn't expect. Councillor Martin disparaged this as a tiny proportion of our population, but whilst waiting to speak, I checked how many people complete the average national YouGov survey and discovered it's around 50,000 people, which equates to 0.07% of the population. Same. The report notes that our residents expressed a clear preference for 3 unitary authorities, but for me, 63% of residents opting for a 3 unitary model over only 17% preferring a 2 unitary model is almost reason enough just to adopt it without looking any further. It's what's wanted by the people who put us in this chamber. The table on page 25 gives us some detail as to their priorities and concerns as we invited them to tell us their top 3 priorities, and the top 2 of those, with 83% and 75% respectively, were understanding of local issues and local decision making. I consider this really enlightening because not only did they support the adoption of 3 unitary authorities, they've also shown us that the priority of reducing bureaucracy, which maps most closely onto the principle of ensuring financial efficiency, the only metric on which the 3 unitary model scored lower than the 2 unitary model, is 4th on our list of residents' priorities, with only 30.9% of residents placing this in their top 3 priorities. For our residents, monetary costs don't trump everything. Although I think our residents' strong steer on this outweighs any of the other content in these 2 reports, I also think it's really important that we have the humility to learn from the experiences of other councils that have moved to a unitary authority before us. I was really interested to read on page 67, that local government reorganisation in Dorset saw slowed economic progress due to attempts to bridge disconnected economies, leaving both authorities
managing disconnected economies, weakening regional influence and stalled efforts to coordinate housing, employment, land and infrastructure planning. This is further explored on page 77, where it's noted that the lack of a regional anchor in Dorset led to weakened influence and fewer major funding wins compared to other reorganised counties. For me, this is a significant red flag that we must heed. In these times of ever diminishing funding, we need to put the new unitary authority in the best possible position to secure funding from any available source. Cheshire East shows how size and diversity of need can inhibit housing, and the 3 unitary model in Surrey avoids these tensions by enabling tailored local plans, which speaks to the concerns that Mr. Ruth raised earlier. And then on page 79, referring to the experiences of residents in North Yorkshire, England's geographically largest unitary authority, residents in smaller communities reported feeling invisible. This really resonates for me, as I was elected to represent Elstead and Pepperharrow, one of our more rural wards. To wrap up, I just want to refer to the section on shaping Surrey's future and to outcome 3 on page 91, where the report pledges that we will listen to people. Well, I suggest we start now. Our residents have given us a really clear steer what they want, and it's 3 unitary authorities.
Thank you, Councillor. I have Councillor Beeman.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Now, I've always supported unitary authorities as a concept, but one of the most important things would be that unitary authorities should also devolve powers down to local towns and parish councils. I have yet to see that this is achieved by any of the, well, certainly not the Surrey proposal. And in fact, at last Thursday's town council meeting, we did debate of the possible invitation on Surrey to participate in a community's board. After much debate, and in fact we thought, well, certainly we didn't think it was right or proper, and in fact we will not be wishing to participate in any community board as such. I think time is premature, then we need to, and it's not for Surrey County Council to dictate what the level of power should be at that level. Now, I would say, it's like I'm being forced to choose 2 or 3. Well, I mean 3 is too few as far as I'm concerned, and in the sense that I'll just give you some facts. Jim McMahon, who is the minister in charge, he was the leader of Oldham Council, and there's a population of 243,000. And next door neighbour, Angela Rayner's Ashton-on-the-Lyne, at Thames has a population of 232,000. So in fact, we're in a very sort of a strange environment where we actually hit 500,000. So, although I will be supporting the motion, it's with great reluctance because it's not the sort of unitary authorities that I thought we would want to see or deserve.
Thank you. Before I move to summing up, does any other councillor wish to speak? Councillor Fairclough, do you wish to speak as seconder?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As Councillor Long has reminded us, when considering the motion before us, we must remember why we are here. And we are here as the elected representatives of the residents of Waverley, elected to represent their best interests. Last week, many people were offered the opportunity to elect new representatives. And as Councillor Murray has reminded us, we know that many did. But this opportunity was denied to the residents of Waverley, which makes our role this evening and the decision made here tonight all the more important. I have sympathy with the views put forward by Councillors Coburn and Murray, in particular the need to protect true local democracy and autonomy. Local government reform is being imposed upon the residents of a well-run Waverley as a rushed, one-size-fits-all solution to the financial excesses of other profligate councils. There are potential benefits, such as a more holistic approach to planning and the provision of necessary infrastructure, but even this is tempered by the loss of true local understanding. Unfortunately, as Councillor Beeman has pointed out, we are effectively presented with Hobson's choice. The option of 3 unitaries is not perfect, but it is so much better than the alternative. Surrey's proposal for 2 unitaries will be disastrous for the residents of Waverley. If option 2.1 is adopted, it will expose our residents to the combined debt of over £4.5 billion, debt that the government has made no commitment to write off. Some analysts suggest that the capital financing cost for Surrey's proposed Western Unitary, of which Waverley would be part, could be as high as 35% of the net revenue. That does not, and here I'm going to quote the government's own phrase, secure financial resilience, one of the government's 6 stated principles for local government reform. It is simply unsustainable. And remember, this would only address the interest, not the actual debt themselves. As a resident of Waverley, what can I expect from Surrey's proposed option 2.1? Almost certainly my council tax will rise by a high double-digit amount. It's highly likely that many of the assets I enjoy will need to be sold off, and it's probable that the potential for discretionary expenditure on the services that our residents have come to rely upon and the amenities that I currently enjoy will be removed, all due to the debts incurred by the reckless expenditure of other councils. Worse still, with little or no thought given to true local democracy, it is possible that the independence of Waverley's towns and parish councils will be compromised by the imposed creation of community boards, ones with little real power and no financial autonomy. Reading its proposal, I'd argue that even Surrey doesn't believe in the 2 unitary option. If you follow the stated arguments for 2 unitaries to their logical conclusion, in terms of debt resolution, potential savings and efficiencies generated, what you're actually left with is the rationale for the creation of a single unitary. I do accept that the proposed 3 unitary option does not address the debt issue. How can it? Without direct government intervention, the figures are simply too huge to deal with, a fact recognised within the wording of the motion put forward by this administration. However, the 3 unitary option does deliver unitaries that recognise local identities. It recognises and maintains the 3 functional economic areas within the county, and it reflects our residents' desire that any new unitaries recognise place-based priorities. In short, it's not just the best option on the table, it's the only sensible one. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Townsend, would you like to sum up?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I very much appreciate everybody's comments, and I know it is a very difficult decision that we're facing here. I think that what has come out on top, though, that we need to listen to is the results of the survey, is what people have said. I was as well very surprised that so many people have taken the time, and we have made decisions in this council based on very lower numbers of survey results than that. So I think it is important to be steered by that towards the solution that people are indicating that they would like. I listened to Councillor Martin and mentioning about his geography study, but he didn't actually say what that study found out. So I might have to find out later what actually that conclusion it came to. You know, if we're just looking at numbers here, we'd just go for one. We'd just go, oh, forget about everything. Just go for 1 unitary. You know, that's the biggest savings. But we know not only what people have told us that isn't the thing that they want, and not only all those academic studies that have said bigger is not better. We know that people want local decision making, as much local decision making as possible. And what we've come up with, the 3 unitaries, is the best of the opportunities that we've got, with more local decision making, more links between those different groupings within the 3 unitaries, not only on the functional economic areas, has been said, which have been well established, but also on housing as well. And Mr. Ruth, you know, his question about housing and planning, the government has made it clear that they want us to promote and go forward very quickly with local plans. And that's what we need to do. We are sticking with local plans. That will be taken forward into the unitaries along with neighbourhood planning as well. What will happen after that at this stage, we do not know. And it will be within the gift of the unitary. But at the moment, the housing numbers are per local authority and per borough or district. And then they will be producing their own local plan or have a local plan in place at the moment. I listened to the voices about saying that towns and parishes are important, and I've very much believe that as well. You know, I'm still a parish councillor, and I've been a parish chairman. And equally, doesn't that local voice, what about those areas across Surrey who don't have that? You know, we're looking obviously from what Waverley residents need, and we're, you know, fully town and parish, which is great. But we do have to think a little bit outside of that. What about other areas that have got no towns and parishes? Having a more three unitary model gives them a slightly more local voice, not reliant on just the unitary to dictate everything to them. So I think it is important that we look at that model as well for other places. Yes, they can go for a community governance review and perhaps set up their own towns and parishes, but it is something we need to think of. I think that, you know, that the decision of the three unitaries has been made across cross-party, has been made through co-production, through collaboration, through really looking at the places that those particular councillors and officers are working within. And let's not forget the proposal for two unitaries, whether people like it, and I'm not just being political here, has been produced by the Surrey County Council Cabinet. That is it. As a Surrey County Councillor, I have not been able to vote on that, as have other councillors in the meeting here can attest as well. So it is one voice. We should not let that drown out the voices of us, the district and boroughs, and of our residents. That should be paramount to us. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. We will now move to the vote, which I remind you is on the the motion that was on the
Excuse me, Mr.
board
Mayor.
as amended.
Could I call for a recorded vote,
Can I just
please?
finish speaking?
Sorry.
Thank you. As amended by Councillor Hyman's motion. Yes, Councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Sorry for interrupting. Can I call for a recorded vote, please, on this? I think I have the support.
Do I see 5 people standing? Or at least waving arms? Thank you very much. We will have a recorded vote. Could we have a roll call, please?
Councillor Barker-Lomax.
Against.
Councillor Beeman.
Reluctantly, yes. For.
Councillor Busby.
For.
Councillor Cavalieri. For. Councillor Clark.
For.
Councillor Coburn.
Against.
Councillor Crowe.
For.
Councillor Davidson. Is he not here? Councillor Denis.
Against.
Councillor Juice is away. Councillor Earwaker.
For.
Councillor Fairclough.
For.
Councillor Hess.
For.
Councillor Higgins.
For.
Councillor Hosseini.
Against.
Councillor Keane. For. Sorry, I've missed you, Councillor Hyman.
For.
Councillor Keel.
For.
Councillor Long.
For.
Councillor MacLeod.
For.
Councillor Martin.
Against.
Councillor Mirrlees.
For.
Councillor Morrison.
For.
Councillor Monroe.
For.
Councillor Murray.
For.
Councillor Nicholson. Councillor Relene. Councillor Paul Rivers.
For.
Councillor Penny Rivers. Councillor Rubini.
For.
Councillor Spence. Is Councillor Staunton here? Councillor Steiger. Councillor Liz Townsend.
For.
Councillor Philip Townsend. Councillor Ward.
For.
Councillor Weldon.
For.
Councillor Williams.
For.
Have I missed any names? Councillor Gale.
Abstain.
Thank you. Bear with.
The count is 29 votes in favour, 6 against and 1 abstention. The motion is therefore carried and you may go home before midnight. Thank you, councillors.